Hello and welcome to this brief tutorial of the patient monitoring app by 3shape, which is included in the TRIOS 3 and the TRIOS 4. This is not included in the TRIOS Basic, this is one of the excitement apps. My name is Victor Czarnetzke, I'm the Straumann Lab Territory Manager for Los Angeles, and I'll be your host today. I wanted to walk you through a couple cases here. I've got a wear case, which we can see in this patient here, and we've got a number of scans that date back a couple years. To enable the patient monitoring, we have to right-click and go down to Enable Patient Monitoring, which is the last item in this list. Once I click on that, we'll see the module pop up here on the top of the workflow. So when I enter that module, we'll see a lot at once, but we'll dive through each of the items that you see on the screen here. So first off, we see our color scan, and then we see a blue scan overlaying it. What that represents right down here, which we can see, the blue is in this secondary scan, and then the color is this white tab here. So I can grab these tabs and take them to any number of scans in the scan sequence to see those two compared. So now we see there's a case dating back to April 25th of 2017, which is being compared with our most recent, which is the 9th of November in 2018. Up here in the upper right, we have the options for changing what we're viewing. Right here, if I just hold my mouse over, I can see the primary upper jaw transparency. I can turn the transparency down on that, or I can turn it all the way off if I drag that all the way to the left. Similarly, we have the same for the lower jaw, and then we have the secondary scan option for the upper jaw and the lower jaw. Down here we have the show or hide texture, which shows us a stone cast. Sometimes that color is very hard to see through and give us a clear picture, so we can turn that off here. And then over on the far right we have the individual views, so I can see just the upper jaw, just the lower jaw, or both in occlusion. Atop that I have an eye for info. This shows relevant info of whatever screen you're on. And you can deselect this so it doesn't show up automatically if you like. Over here on the left hand side we have the measurements and then the simulation. We're going to stick in the measurements for right now, which has these three different options: the tooth comparison, the full large scan comparison, or the cross-section analysis. Let's start with the tooth comparison. And it'll ask us to select the scans on the timeline to adjust the difference map thresholds on the right. So like I said, we can click on these scans down here and change our primary or our secondary scan by dragging these low pentagons. Right now, like I said, we're in the tooth comparison, so it's going to show us tooth by tooth the analysis of change. If I look at just my upper model here, zoom up, I can see a significant amount of wear happening across this incisal edge. Now this heat map over here on the right hand side shows us two different thresholds. So anything below 0.1 millimeter of change will be represented in green, so that would represent no change or very little change. And then we have a yellow to an orange to a red, which would be a 0.8 millimeters of change. We can adjust this. We can click and drag this down. Maybe I want to see everything between, or I should say greater than half a millimeter of change. So now anywhere it's red, that darkest red, it's going to be about half a millimeter of change. And then the orange and yellow will be closer down to that green, 0.1 millimeters of change. Let's take a look at the lower as well. So we can also see the lower, we see very similar values. If we see this white here, what we can do is we can go to Segmentation Check over here on the far left. So the scanner does an automatic job of segmenting tooth by tooth for this comparison, but if we see a discrepancy in that, we can edit the segmentation. To do that, I'm going to zoom back down to tooth number 25. I'll go over here to Show All to show each scan where it's segmented. I'll make sure that those look correct. As I mentioned, I can come in here and make individual adjustments to these teeth. make those adjustments, I'll simply click and drag and paint on where that tooth is represented. If I make an error, I can come up here to remove, and I can simply erase what I've added. Then go back and fine tune it if I need to. After that, I'll accept the segmentation over here for all of the scans that I'd modified. Now if I go over to the cross-section, I'm going to skip the scan comparison for now. We'll look at an ortho case for that because that gives us a great full arch representation. I'm going to go over to the cross-section analysis. So what the scanner is asking me to do is to draw a line to represent the plane that we're going to be analyzing. So I want to find a tooth that's changed significantly over time and draw a plane cut through it. By drawing that plane cut, it'll show us a cross-sectional analysis over here on the right, where we can see the blue line here and then the brown line represented by our primary and secondary scans. I can click on this ball in the plane cut and move that left and right to scan through to see a better analysis of the change. What I'm going to do is go to the upper arch here . I'm going to reset my plane to a tooth that has changed significantly over time. Now I can see that change that we're talking about. So if I angle this over, we can zoom in and see the amount of change between the primary and the secondary scan. And I can even click on this cross plane and I can measure the distance between. So I know that this patient on this specific tooth has worn about 1/3 of a millimeter, so it's definitely time for a night guard for this patient, or to reanalyze their occlusion. I'm also going to skip the simulation. We'll go over to that ortho case now to see what those look like. So I'm going to go back to my patients tab here. So here's the ortho case I was referencing. There's 5 total scans. I'm going to go to Enable Patient Monitoring, and then up into our patient monitoring excitement out. Now once again we have the same primary and secondary scan analysis down here. I'm going to drag this one back to the initial scan back in August of 2016, and we can see a significant difference in this ortho case, where we've got the blue of the initial 8 and 9 and how far they've moved over those years. So this is where that scan comparison, that full arch comparison, will give us a great analysis of the change. So we can see 8 and 9 have moved more than 0.8 millimeters because they're represented in this dark red. If I scale this up to about 1.5 millimeter, we can see that they've changed even more than that over time. If I go over here to the simulation, as mentioned, this will show us an animation of the change. So this is really valuable for ortho cases, so we can show the patient how their treatment has progressed over time. Down here I have some different controls. We have a simple play button to start the animation, and a pause button once it starts to stop it. By doing that, we can really see the change over time. Let's look at a single arch to give us a better view. What an amazing tool. Over here, this button changes the time that it spends between each different checkpoint, so it'll spend an equal amount of time even if the scans were relatively close time apart compared to others. So let's see one more time with that selected. So this will give us a more smooth transition between the individual scans. And then this button, the next and forward buttons here, will progress through the individual timelines, or timestamps I should say, one by one. So once again, this was the Patient Excitement app, patient monitoring. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. We'll address those as soon as possible. Have a great day, and be safe.